A year after the tight ends really helped SMU in 2025, that same position room could elevate SMU to even better heights in 2026.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On SMU here on this Friday edition as we round out another week of the show. My name is Grayson Singleton. So glad you're making us your first listen of the day as always. And our episode today is brought to you by FanDuel. During the tournament, FanDuel is offering $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Coming up on the show today, Sam Walters is leaving SMU basketball and hitting the portal. So what does this mean for the Mustangs and what they need going forward? We'll talk about that. Plus, the Mustangs are a finalist for four-star wide receiver out of Argyle, Texas, Julian Caldwell. We'll talk about that as well. By the way, keep an eye out for a bonus episode. We'll talk a little bit more recruiting in that as well. But let's go ahead and start out by continuing our series of going position room by position room leading into the 2026 season. And we're going to talk about tight end. Now, SMU will not have a homegrown tight end, at least to our knowledge right now, that is going to predominantly factor into the rationing of snaps for this team. The tight end room is going to be dominated, barring injury, by Texas A&M transfer Theo Melin Öhrström and Florida State transfer Randy Pittman. And Randy Pittman also has spent time at UCF in his career as well. I believe both are in their final year of eligibility. I know for sure with Theo Melin Öhrström, this will be his final year of eligibility. For Randy Pittman, it will be his fourth year of college football, and I'm sure would be his final year as well. But SMU got really good run out of RJ Maryland and Matthew Hibner a year ago. Both are going to be guys that could potentially be drafted, particularly Matthew Hibner. I think he's really been impressive in the pre-draft process, but I think SMU's in a really good position to continue what RJ and what Hibner started in 2000 and really in 2024. But you look at Theo Melin Öhrström, he is ginormous. 6'6", 258 pounds, borderlining 260. This is a guy with a big body and has always been a dude who can run routes and make contested catches. As a matter of fact, I looked up his 24/7 scouting report when he came over from Sweden as an original college prospect. And that was one of the things they pointed out, is that he was always going to be a matchup nightmare because of his size, and because of his hand strength was just going to make him nearly an impossible cover when it comes to jump balls and contested catches. The 50-50 ball was going to be a 60-40, 70-30 type of thing with Theo Melin Öhrström. He has also gotten better as a blocker, too. That's something that he's added to his game and gotten better at. His scouting report coming out of Sweden, was that he wasn't as experienced as a blocker. And that was something that he was going to have to work on. And he did. To his credit, he did work on that. By the way, he is from Sweden. Melin Öhrström is. So he's gotten better as a blocker. He's always had that knack for the contested catch. And he had time split out wide in high school. Now, he didn't do a whole heck of a lot of that at Texas A&M, but he has done it before, which means he would fit in pretty nicely with what Rhett Lashley wants to do with his offense, because if you remember going back the last couple of years, both RJ Maryland and Matthew Hibner have done exactly that. Randy Pittman, is a dude who should be the second tight end and should be a really good one. He's a red zone weapon. He scored 3 rushing touchdowns for Florida State this year as well. And when you look at the body type that he brings as well, because he may not be as big as Öhrström, but he's still a solidly built guy. 6'2", about 240. So you're going to have another guy that can inline block, red zone weapon, can go up and make contested catches, This is a guy that, especially in 2024, played well for UCF. 32 catches for 416 yards and 2 touchdowns that year. For his career, 74 grabs, 839 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 3 additional rushing touchdowns as well. So you can get a little creative with him when it comes to red zone, short yardage, goal line situation. But ultimately, with these two guys coming over from their respective schools, SMU now is in a position to get even more production out of that tight end room. And if they can, boy, does that elevate the offense. Because you look at running back, you look at receiver, and now you've got tight ends that can be major players. Kevin Jennings is going to have potentially an abundance of weapons to work with. It's going to be an embarrassment of riches, especially if they can get the wide receiver position squared away with guys that we really feel good about, just because we don't know what it looks like at the P4 level for guys like Yannick Smith and Jalen Hale. But if running back shakes out where how we think it is, if wide receiver shakes out in a positive way, and now you got these two big dudes running routes at tight end, man, SMU's offense can go through the roof. And I'm not saying it's going to be a top 10 offense in the country, but boy, can it be a very good one. It can be a very good one, because I've said this before, but when it comes to tight ends, if you could have really, really good tight end play, that's an extra dynamic to your offense. Because a lot of times they can be too fast for linebackers and they can be too big for DBs. So if you can get those dudes, Öhrström and Pittman, lining up in the slot and dominating in the slot and out wide, and you can move them around and make them an almost unguardable chess piece, look out for SMU's offense this year. Look out for it. Because if there's one thing we can say about this team, is that they know how to utilize tight ends that have a skill set to be utilized. They know how to really scheme them up and make them a real asset. So to me, it's no surprise why they came to SMU, because SMU's put it on tape recently that if you've got a skill set, we're going to use it. We're gonna make you block as an inline blocker in the run game, and then we're going to split you out wide. We'll split you into the slot, and we're going to get you some balls. We're going to get you some touches, and they do a really good job of that. It's one of the results of Rhett Lashley's offense where it's a distribution-based offense. It's an RPO foundation, but they distribute it all over the field. Running back, wide receiver, tight end, nobody gets neglected. So if they can get tight end play like that, and that can become something that they go to in the red zone, that can be something that keeps them on schedule offensively, makes life easy, maybe a security blanket for a guy like Kevin Jennings. SMU's offense with these tight ends can be a real factor this year. And I like that room, starting with those two. Obviously, there's more. Guy like Alan Jackson can factor into this as well, but it's going to start with those two, and barring injury, it's going to end with those two, and that's exciting. Those two guys can be really exciting for SMU in 2026. Coming up next, Sam Walters enters the NCAA transfer portal, or I guess is expected to. The Mustangs swung and missed with this one, but they've got to do it again in next season's roster construction. I'll tell you what that is coming up next.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. The NCAA Women's Basketball Tournament Elite Eight wrapped up with the UConn Huskies staying undefeated at 38-0 after a decisive win over Notre Dame, while the UCLA Bruins rallied past Duke behind a dominant second half performance. On the other side, the remaining 1 seeds in South Carolina and Texas will be determined after their matchups against TCU and Michigan, respectively. Next up, the Final Four is set for Friday in Phoenix, with the winners advancing to the national championship on Sunday. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
All right, welcome back to the show. Locked On SMU continuing now. I'm Grayson Singleton, and make sure that you guys tap in with our Everydayer Club as well and get your first month of the Everydayer Club for free when you use code MARCH. You'll unlock ad-free episodes and entry into our private listener group chat. So click the link in the show notes to learn more or go to lockedonsmu.supercast.com to claim your free month. And while you're at it, make sure you subscribe to the channel as well so we can continue to grow this thing and this show on the Locked On Podcast Network. Okay, so Sam Walters is expected to enter the NCAA transfer portal when it opens following the national championship game on Monday. And for SMU, this made sense to go get him, but they're going to swing and miss, but they've got to swing again. Now, Sam Walters is now going to be looking for his fourth team in as many years. Started his career at Alabama, played last season at Michigan, and this year he played a career worst 9.3 minutes per game. And SMU needed a knockdown shooter, and they hoped they would get it from him. And to a degree, he was that. He shot 35% from three, which is a nice clip. For his career, he's shooting 37.6% from three. Just doesn't get a lot of opportunities. The problem was he was such an athletic liability on the other side of the court to the point where he wasn't really playable, especially if there were cases where he wasn't knocking down open shots, which there were instances of that. So the Mustangs were looking for a perimeter dead-eye shooter, and it just didn't work out. The fit wasn't great. There wasn't a lot of opportunities for him to be on the court and effective for long stretches of time. Just didn't work out. And I hope that Sam Walters finds a place where he can work out, because at 6'9", 230, he's got good size, but he doesn't defend very well. He's not a factor rebounding. He's like, the only way he's a factor is when he's shooting the basketball. So Mustang struck out on that one. But here is the reality of the situation for SMU constructing its roster for the 2026-27 season, is that they do need to get more 3-and-D players. Now, they had guys that could make threes, but that's not what we're talking about here. But we're talking bona fide shooters and wing defenders. Get a couple of them, especially if you're going to, and it looks like there's a decent chance that Dink Pate ends up at SMU because of the connection to Jason Hart. You're going to need to build around a guy like that. So what you want is a point guard, hopefully a point guard, that can give you about 8 points a game, but one that can really distribute and be the quarterback of your offense. And then when you've got a guy like Dink Pate, who is going to be a certified scorer, around that, you want obviously a bigger two and some 3-and-D wings. Some 3-and-D wings is what's going to take this over the top. Guys that can get down in the stance and guard on the perimeter and present good size and length doing that, but also dudes who can knock it down from behind the line. And, B.J. Edwards and Jerron Pierre, I think were an approximation of this, but neither of them necessarily were straight up dead-eye shooters, right? Like, B.J. Edwards shot it at 37%. Pretty good. Jerron Pierre Jr. shot it at 37% as well. But they were more create off the dribble type of guys. Instead of what I'm talking about right here is, hey, give me a guy that can catch and shoot. Right. And there is room on this team for Jerron Pierre and BJ Edwards type guys. You want those. You want those guys. Don't get me wrong. You want them. But when it comes to Sam Walters, what they were looking for was a dead-eye shooter. And I want a couple dead-eye shooters. I want a guy that I can look at and say, you might be able to shoot about 40% from three and not be a liability defensively. Love me the two-way wings that can go slash and are three-level scorers like BJ and Jerron were. Love that. You obviously want that. But, and by the way, Dink Pate probably is going to be your next Jerron Pierre Jr. archetype type of player. Okay? But if obviously that comes to fruition. But aside from that, give me floor spacers. Give me guys who can step out and catch and shoot and knock it down at an efficient clip. I do think SMU was missing that last year because a lot of Boopie's threes were off of threes that he created. He did have some catch and shoot in his game, but a lot of that was off of things that he created. So the same could be said for Jaron and BJ. But when somebody breaks down the defense and draws the extra defender, like who's the guy that a team on the opposing scouting report says, we cannot help off of this guy? That's the type of player I'm looking for, and that's the type of player I think that SMU is going to need as it goes to reconstructing its roster. And as it stands right now, the Mustangs don't have that because Jaron's out of eligibility, BJ's out of eligibility, Boopie is out of eligibility, and there's just not really anybody else coming back that would fit that mold. And what you don't want to do is potentially bring in a guy like Dink, who is going to be able to score for himself and then not have shooters around him to space the floor. Because at that point, it's easier to help, easier to send double teams and show bodies and things of that nature to make the life of a scorer like Pate is trying to be much harder than it should. So you're going to want to be able to space the floor, and obviously you're going to be playing likely with Sumet as your starting center, so he's not a floor spacer at all because he just doesn't have an outside shot. But because of that, the other four players on the court need to be able to knock down shots. And they need to present the fear to the other team that you cannot help off of me, otherwise I will make you pay. That's what that's got to look like. So you struck out with Sam Walters, didn't work, not a good fit, but you need to go find some shooters. What you were looking for with Sam Walters is a good thing. Now go find it somewhere else. And in the process, get you a guy who can also defend. Like if you could get 2 or 3 more Jaron Pierre Jr.'s, that's awesome. 2 or 3 other guys that are capable of averaging 12 to 14 a night and could also defend at a high level. If you could get you some of those, that'd be great. But will you be able to get 2, 3 of those? I don't know. But if you have to bring somebody in who's just a shooter, bring somebody in that's a shooter. Because I want in certain situations a guy to be able to space the floor out, because that's how the game's played. The better team, a lot of the better teams can space the floor out, and we can go from there, especially if you successfully add Dink Pate. So in terms of roster construction, that's another thing I'm looking toward, is that yes, the Sam Walters move wasn't a bad one. As a matter of fact, I'd probably say it was a good one given what you knew about him, and it just didn't fit. But try it again. Try it again with somebody else, because this team is in need of shooters. Because if you look at 3-point percentage-wise from last year, shooter number 1, shooter number 2, shooter number 3, and shooter number 5 are all gone. Yeah, that doesn't look good, but you can go find some guys in the portal. All right, coming up next, one more segment to go as we round out the week. Julian Caldwell, 4-star wide receiver from Argyle, Texas, has dropped to top 5, and the Mustangs are in it. Does SMU really have a chance? Let's talk about it. The tournament is here, one of the best times of the year. Brackets, buzzer beaters, upsets, it's nonstop action from tip to the final countdown or cutdown. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a way to stay in on the action all tournament long. Hey, and here is the best part. You get up to $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. That means 10 chances to stay involved throughout the entire tournament. You can mix it up however you want. Game picks, futures, or even same-game parlays for bigger potential payouts. It's perfect for the tournament because every day there's something new. Different matchups, new storylines, and more ways to get involved as the bracket unfolds. So visit FanDuel.com to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com to get in on the action. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood Prediction Markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood Prediction Markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and clear swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, welcome back to the show. Final segment here on Locked On SMU. Let's wrap this thing up talking about some recruiting. We haven't touched on any recruiting nuggets in a while, and while there's been some out there, there haven't really been a whole bunch that are startling. Well, yesterday, Julian Caldwell dropped a top 5. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Julian Caldwell, let me catch you up. Julian Caldwell is a 4-star wide receiver from Argyle, Texas, and one of the top wide receivers in the class of 2027. He dropped a top 5 that includes SMU, Texas, Texas Tech, Oregon, and Notre Dame. So a pretty nice top 5 for a guy who is considered by rivals as the number 16 wide receiver in the entire class and the number 10 player in the state of Texas. Now, Julian Caldwell does have an official visit booked to SMU, so the Mustangs are going to get their chance. Depending on how you look at this, this could be a good thing or a bad thing. SMU is his first official visit. That is May 1st. So that will come pretty much a month from now. So he'll be on the hilltop on May 1st. His visit to Texas Tech is slated for June 5th. He'll go to Oregon June 12th and go to Austin June 19th. Now, he does not have an official booked for Notre Dame, but here's the kicker with that. Notre Dame is hosting official visitors June 12th and June 19th, which means if he is really that interested in Notre Dame, something would have to change with his scheduled visits with Oregon or Texas. So you're going to want to keep an eye out on that. Now, SMU is going to get the first shot at him. In terms of official visits, they will be the ones to set the pace and to potentially blow him away. Now, do I expect if he's going to go to SMU that he shuts it down right after he visits on May 1st? Not really, because that's not usually how these blue chip recruitments work. But I think he will go to I think he'll go to SMU. And if you're SMU, you're going to get the first impression. So you either have the opportunity to do one of two things. You're going to do one of two things. Either you are going to set the bar so high that he says everybody's got to match up to this, or it'll be a good visit and you'll just have to keep your fingers crossed. So that's what that's going to come down to. Keep this in mind as well. Texas Tech is in play here. And if Texas Tech wants somebody, they will offer a crap load of money. That's just how the Red Raiders are doing things now. They have an incredibly wealthy backer in Cody Campbell. If you follow college sports, you're very familiar with him. And they will pay up to, almost indiscriminately for any player that they really want. They will spend without bounds. So anytime you're in the same class with Texas Tech, you know that's what you're going to get. Texas is a big spender. Oregon's a big spender as well. SMU can be a big spender if it wants to, just to throw that out there, because the Mustangs aren't strapped for cash. So that's how that recruitment is going to break down. But when you look at Julian Caldwell, he was a Max Preps Junior All-American second teamer in his junior year, 94 catches, for 1,700 yards and 20 touchdowns in his junior season at Argyle. And what you want to hope for in this case for Julian Caldwell, if SMU is the 5th team looking to make up ground, or they're in the number 2 spot, or they're in the number 1 spot, I wouldn't be able to tell you that. But you have to hope the in-state factor eliminates Oregon and Notre Dame, and then all you got to ask him is, hey, you're from Argyle. You want to stay closer to home? Want to make it easy for mom and pop to come see you? They don't want to go all the way to Lubbock. Why make them make the 3-hour trip or whatever to Austin? Well, they can come see you right here, and you could stay close to where you're from. That's going to have to matter. Like, if you're SMU, that's got to be part of the pitch. So I think the Mustangs, depending on how they play this, have a chance. They're going to get the first crack at him. I like that. Obviously, depending on philosophy, you could potentially say, well, I want to make the last and final impression. But the risk you run is that a guy gets blown away by somebody else and he shut it down before they even get to you. So there's a give and take, whether you're the first or the last or even in the middle, like Oregon and Texas are currently slated to be. And he'll also take the visit to Texas Tech as well. But when it comes to a guy like this, you've got to make every effort to get him. And I know SMU is. They're going to make every effort to get a dude, because what is the Mustangs' vision? The vision is keep the best in DFW here in DFW. And Julian Caldwell certainly qualifies as that. He's a 4-star 92, so an incredibly highly rated player in the class, top 20 wide receiver in the class, and a top 10 player in the state of Texas. That would qualify to SMU's vision of make sure we keep the best here right around in DFW. And I think they've got a chance. They've got a chance. But also, and we'll talk about this in the bonus episode as well, it is about time the Mustangs start getting some good vibes going, or building on some good vibes here in the class of 2027. They've already got 2 commits, one of them being the 4-star quarterback Malachi Ziegler from the state of Louisiana, who we interviewed on this show a few months back. But that's what you've got to do. You've got to be able to continue that momentum, because they only got 2 commits right now. Only got 2. The guys at the top of the class have got 9, 10, knocking on the door of double digits. And then there's Oklahoma with 20 to lead everybody. The Sooners will likely finish with the number 1 class in the country. But that's where you stand right now. So maybe you get him to shut it down after May 1st. I would not bet money on that. I would be very pleasantly surprised if that were to occur. But Julian Caldwell, add him to a room where in 2026 you brought in a guy like Aldrin Miles, and in 2025 you brought in a guy like Jalen Cooper and Carterius Brown and Isaiah Robertson. Now we're really starting to cook with fish grease here. If you're Rob Likens year over year on the recruiting trail, and if you're Rhett Lashley continuing to fortify this vision that you can keep the best in DFW right at home in DFW. It's a big thing. And Julian Caldwell's recruitment is a big thing for all of this going on. So we'll talk about that more in the bonus episode that'll come out later today as well. But for now, appreciate you guys making us your first listen of the day. That'll do it for Locked On SMU for today. Make sure you check out the Everydayer Club and get that first month free with code MARCH, as well as subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. I'm Grayson Singleton. Make sure you make your second listen of the day the 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel, and on audio, check out Locked On College Basketball. We'll talk to you guys next week. Take it easy, everybody. Enjoy the Easter weekend. We'll see you.